for our participants that we serve as injection drug users and sex workers, and we need them to tax Wall Street so we can provide the services for the participants here in Harlem.
My name is Alex. I'm out here a member of the community. I interact a lot with the homeless population, and I'm concerned about the sort of recklessness that goes on in Wall Street, and looking for something to stabilize the economy and also to provide more services.
Banks crashed our economy, and communities like Harlem, communities of color all around New York City were the hardest hit by that, and the banks got bailed out, and they don't pay enough in taxes. They pay very little in taxes, actually, compared to how much they make. And we need this. Communities are suffering from their actions, and yet we're forced to pay for it by cuts in services. So we need to tax Wall Street. A, because they have the money, making in massive profits, and B, because communities need the money. We need critical public services.
I'm with the New York State Nurses Association, and we're here to support the Robin Hood tax, which is basically a tax that is being proposed to tax 1% of the income of the wealthiest, 1% wealthiest of the United States. And I think this is a great idea for the people, because the situation now is that the rich is just getting richer, the poor is getting poorer, and we need the money to fund healthcare, we need jobs, and to raise $350 billion just out of 1% from the wealthiest is really a great help for all the marginalized peoples or the people of color and all the immigrants in the country.
Here with Neisman as well, the New York State Nurses Association, and I think the increase in inequality in the country is very troubling. And the wealthy are getting wealthier, and the poor are getting poorer, and essential services are being cut, hospitals are being closed, schools don't have the funding that they need. And folks on Wall Street are doing extremely well and making more money than they ever have. And so taxing them is reasonable, and it's an easy thing for us to do so that we can maintain those essential services for most people in society. We can keep hospitals open, we can fund schools with the funding that they need, our young people can get the education that they need to do well in society, and it's fair that Wall Street pay its fair share, and that they're taxed on transactions through this Robin Hood tax, so that we can really address the inequality in this country. I think it's an important thing for us to do right now.
To tax Wall Street, they've been ripping off the people, and it's just too much. That's why we need to educate the people and get the support of legislators. They need to know, and I think they know. But we need to put pressure on them that it's about time to tax Wall Street. This stocks, derivatives, and selling of trade transactions needed to be taxed. If we pay taxes, sales taxes, and buying, regular things, why can't we tax these transactions, Wall Street transactions? This will solve a lot of our problems. Healthcare, schools being closed. Hospitals being closed. If we have enough funds for this, there should not be a problem. And there's a major disparity here in New York. They're closing hospitals in Brooklyn where there are only 2 beds per 1,000 people, while in Upper East Side where the rich people live, they have 6 beds per 1,000 people. Major inequality. This got to stop. Therefore, it's about time to tax Wall Street.
In commemoration of Dr. Martin Luther King, I'm here with a message that we should tax Wall Street, not the people. Tax Wall Street. We represent the Robin Hood tax.
My name is Michael Tequili, and I work for HealthCap, which is an international AIDS activist organization. We've been fighting for the lives of people living with HIV in the Global South for years, and we realize in order to do that, we need more resources and more funding for treatment. Today, April 4th, 2014, marks 46 years since Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered while conducting a national campaign against economic inequality. In the nearly half a century that has passed, that dream remains unfilled. And the gap between the top 1% wealthiest and the rest of Americans has widened. We're here today to say it is long past time to fulfill Dr. King's dream, to achieve the real promise of America, to eradicate economic inequality, the issue of our time. In Dr. King's last year, he had announced plans to lead a poor people's campaign, calling for a new federally funded program of tens of billions of dollars for such needs as full employment, a living income, and secure housing for all. Those remain key barriers, along with lack of access to health care, excessive medical bills, to a redress of economic inequality. And today we are here to talk about a solution, the Robin Hood tax. The Robin Hood tax supporters are holding vigils today at congressional offices just like Congressman Rangel across the country to demand that Congress pass the Robin Hood tax, or H.R. 1579, the only real cure to the sickness of rampant economic inequality, to shrinking the gap between the haves and have-nots, and to truly heal America. The first step is for Congress to get out of Wall Street's pockets and to pass the Robin Hood tax. Speaking of Congress being in Wall Street's pocket, we've been out here many months before asking Congressman Rangel to support this tax because we know what it will do for his community and people who are suffering around, but he refuses to do so. H.R. 1579, the Inclusive Prosperity Act, sponsored by Representative Keith Ellison, contains a tiny tax on Wall Street speculative trades that would raise hundreds of billions of dollars every year. Those are the resources we need for our people, for our communities. With those resources, we can commit to Dr. King's dream. With the real revenue we need for jobs, at living wages, for shelters for all Americans, for guaranteeing health care for all, for ending the AIDS epidemic, for equal access to education for our children, for fighting poverty and the climate crisis. All that would go along toward healing our nation's obscene wealth and income inequality while honoring the struggle that Dr. King gave his life for. Half a century ago, Dr. King said the following. I wasn't around. And it is even truer now than it was then. This is America's opportunity to help bridge the gulf between the haves and the have-nots. The question is whether America will do it. There is nothing new about poverty. What is new is that we now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty. The real question is whether we will or will not do it. Martin Luther King Jr.
My background, I work in the field of child welfare, and I see firsthand the effects of child poverty on the community. When we have communities where there is I like to be filmed.
You can't film on the plaza.
Okay, is that a crime?
So can you please
Go ahead, continue, man.
Okay.
Excuse me.
You can't
In
film.
New York City,
Not
for
on
the past
the
few
federal
years, the
building, you
federal
can't.
poverty level has poverty level of families has been rising.
Thank you.
And this is
When
for
poverty
who?
rises, children suffer.
This is for who? Money?
It's in management.
Management?
Yeah, I think you do.
Who's the management?
You know what?
OGS.
We want to
OGS?
make a safer
Okay, so I'm not filming the building. No. Just continue with it. Let me talk to them. Let me take care of it.
Shouldn't it? Is it the federal police that would enforce this?
Just keep Yeah, but you see how they come. Yeah. But the red truck, I'm watch you.
When poverty rises, I don't know.
We're trying to have a vigil.
Yeah, continue.
Okay. In the United States, 2 out of every 5 children lives below the poverty level. And this is at a time of record profits on Wall Street. What happens to families and communities when children are poor? There's more drug abuse. There's more domestic violence. There's more child abuse. The health outcomes are worse. There's fewer job opportunities. That cycle of poverty continues and cumulatively gets worse and worse. It makes our schools less safe. It makes our homes less safe. And it makes our communities less safe. And even people in police departments also have to deal with the negative consequences of increasing poverty, because that means more gang violence. It means more guns on our streets. And it means more drugs in our schools. And that's unacceptable. If we didn't have enough money, then we'd have a different conversation. But there's a lot of money. It's just not being spent on the programs for the poor. Ask yourselves, why was the NYPD without a contract for years and years and years? There's more than enough money. Why are teachers shut out of schools that are being closed down? There's more than enough money. The Robin Hood tax, as I've discovered, is one way to take from those that have taken the wealth out of our communities and give back to the people. In our lifetimes, we can see the end of child poverty. It's a decision. Nelson Mandela said it. Poverty is not a natural condition. It is a choice that a society makes. I choose to fight against poverty and to give back to the people.
We need Congressman Rangel to support the Robin Hood tax so we can continue to provide these services for our community. We need the taxes to end AIDS globally. We have been making great strides through our work with high-impact communities in New York City. But as funding dries up it becomes more difficult to provide the level of services we need to make a difference. We need to fully fund harm reduction services in this country and across the globe. We need Robin Hood tax to ensure that there's a program like Nairi wherever there's a community of people who inject drugs or exchange sex. The social safety net in this country is full of holes. The government is cutting food stamps, which people need to feed their children. My food stamps were just cut from $363 to $189 in just under a year. How am I supposed to feed myself and my daughter for less than $7 a day? The people I serve live in both below the poverty line, often homeless and struggling to eat. We need the Robin Hood tax to fix the social safety net and ensure that people have what they need to survive. Congressman, I am here today to remind you that people in your district are suffering. You have a choice to make, whether you are in office to serve the banks on Wall Street or whether your job is to support the community on 125th Street. Make Wall Street pay their fair share, so we can continue to provide services to ensure that our community has a fair access to resources and opportunity. Everyone has a right to a fair shot. We need Robin Hood tax to fix the holes in our social safety net so we can ensure that America is a country where opportunities are available to all and not just those fortunate enough to be wealthy.
I'm Jovi Thoilo. I'm here representing the New Economy Project. We're an economic justice center that works with community groups to bring about a new economy that works for everyone. Communities of color and low-income communities are the ones that were the hardest hit by the financial crisis. These communities were also the ones that have been hit by wave after wave of predatory financial practices by the big banks and Wall Street for decades. So 5.5 years after the financial crisis, these communities are still suffering to make it through a recession that's characterized by income inequality, a lack of living wage jobs, and massive cuts to social services. Meanwhile, the big banks of Wall Street, how do you think they're doing? They got bailed out, and you know what? The bailout worked for them because they're amassing record profits. The biggest 6 banks alone made $76 billion in profits last year. And although they've had to pay a couple of billion in fines for engaging in abusive practices, they've still managed to pay their CEOs and executives a record level of salary increases and bonuses. On top of that, Wall Street banks pay way too little in taxes. Because of corporate subsidies and tax loopholes, they're able to effectively pay way less than their fair share. To give you an idea, banks make 30% of corporate profits in this country, and they pay only 18% of corporate profits in this country.
That ain't right.
That ain't right at all. You know, they tell us in our communities that there isn't enough money to pay for affordable housing, for childcare, for all the critical services that they've been cutting. But the fact is there is enough money. We know where it is. It's stuck on Wall Street. So that's why my organization, New Economy Project, supports the Robin Hood tax as a matter of fairness, but more importantly as a matter of economic justice and racial justice. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that something really ridiculous happened this week, I should say. Elected officials in New York State actually rewarded the banks of Wall Street by cutting their taxes by hundreds of millions of dollars. That's hundreds of millions of dollars every year that Wall Street will get to keep in their pockets as profits, and our communities will lose out on as revenue. So that's a step in the wrong direction. What we need is the opposite, and the opposite of that is the Robin Hood tax. Again, economic, racial justice. We're calling on Congressman Rangel and all elected officials to do the right thing, stand with the people, and stop representing Wall Street.